Y'all need a pilot. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And we're here for a review of Flight Risk. It does have audio description, so you can thank the flight plan for making sure that it allotted for that. It's directed uh, from the director of Braveheart, a certain man by the name of Mel Gibson is the director of this. And click like and subscribe. We're going to get into it. I'm a blind film critic, and I don't do this enough, but I need to remember to do it more often. I'm currently wearing a purple hat backwards. I've got black sunglasses on, and I'm wearing a Fast and Furious t-shirt. A lot of times I just don't do it because I honestly don't know what shirt I'm wearing. So it's kind of embarrassing, so I just kind of skip it. But today I do. I know I'm wearing a Fast and Furious t-shirt for Flight Risk. I think it says a lot about Flight Risk, or my choice of movies that I own a Fast and Furious t-shirt, but whatever. This is a Mark Wahlberg movie that went theatrical. Just alone, we should be excited for that, because this poor guy has been going straight to streaming with some of the dullest, most uninspired movies that I've seen across Netflix and Apple Plus, and I think those are the only two that have hosted him so far. But yeah, The Union, The Family Plan, I think that was the name of the movie that he was in. These are not great movies for him to be in, and he's kind of been stuck in them. So Flight Risk wasn't really any better, but at least it went to theaters. You know, at least it seemed to have that kind of profile. And he's obviously the biggest name in here because his co-stars are Dockery and Topher Grace. So even though he's not the lead of the film, he feels like he's the lead of the film. We'll talk about that, because if you came from Mark Wahlberg, you need to know that you're coming from Dockery, who's actually the lead of the movie. So kudos to Mel Gibson for having a female lead, and B, letting it be Dockery instead of like some I don't know, inappropriately like super hot young up and coming actress who would not be believable as an FBI agent, or I don't know, somebody more well known than Michelle. But great actress. I'm really actually kind of stoked that she's in this. It does build a little bit of a goodwill bridge between me and the film, putting Dockery in a lead role. Topher Grace is here. I don't know why. He's just basically being Topher Grace. And Mark Wahlberg, to his credit, is doing everything in this most non-Mark Wahlberg-y way possible. Like, all of his Wahlbergisms that people make fun of him for, they're not really here. This is such a bizarre role for him. So what is it? Topher Grace plays Watson or Wilson or Willow, I don't know. It's somebody. It doesn't really matter what his name is. And he's off in the Alaskan wilderness hiding, and eventually he's found by a marshal that bursts in with some cops and brings him back in, and they're going to take him in. He's been wanted for crimes, and he immediately wants to make a deal, because, you know, life choices. And part of that deal entails that he ends up becoming like state's witness for this other larger case against, I don't know, some corruption charge, or it's not really ever really explained too much what he's becoming a state witness for. There's like one of those like Italian mafia sound names, like Maroni or something like that he has to speak up against. So Michelle has to escort Topher back to civilization, basically. In this case, Anchorage. And then from there, obviously back to where they would keep their agents in protection until they testify. They're people like Topher Grace annoying people like Topher Grace. Uh, and then the pilot gets on board, and it's this kind of like southern drawl, like, yeah, I've been flying all these years, and you never know what's gonna get, and yeah, it's Mark Wahlberg doing that for a little while. And eventually Michelle pieces together, and so does Topher, that not all is right with their pilot. He's not really their pilot. Um, and he's, of course, some hitman that's been sent out here to make sure that Topher Grace doesn't testify. So, that's that's the basic rundown of the movie. They're in the air. There's not much they can do. There really isn't a whole lot of supporting cast in this. Everybody else is like over the like phone. She has a sat phone because of course she does. So she's able to call people. Laura San Giacomo is actually one of the people she calls in a more sort of like interesting phone voice. But so what's good about the movie? Well, we have Michelle Dockery in the lead. She's playing sort of against type that you would see Michelle Dockery, but also it does play to a lot of her strengths. And I actually liked her in this. The writing's not great, but she does with it what she can. And she's the most interesting of the three actors in the plane. She's making the most choices that are interesting. Topher's basically just doing exactly what you would expect Topher Grace to do. He's doing sort of the nervous thing. There's not a lot of acting coming out of him. He feels like Eric Foreman trying to hide weed from his parents. Like, it's that level of performance. It's like no direction whatsoever was given to Topher Grace. Therefore, how much you'll enjoy Topher Grace depends on how much you enjoy Topher Grace just as a baseline, because that's where he is. Mark, on the other hand, I don't know what he's doing, and I don't know what Mel's thoughts were on this role, but Mark is all over the place. His character is faking the southern accent, and then Mark has to do another accent, and pretend that he's, I don't know, like from the Bronx or something. And of course, everybody's commented on the ridiculous hair that he has and the ridiculous bald cap that I guess is really obvious that it's a bald cap. Or like male pattern baldness or whatever he's got in this movie. He's kind of just really annoying. And those jokes that they always have, there are these videos on the internet of people who are professionals, and they get these firefighters and like, look, these firefighter situations in TV and film, what are these realistic? Well, they always have those like medical ones about concussions, and they're like, yeah, well, people who had a concussion for that long, that we're talking like brain damage, like if you get knocked out for a substantial period of time, chances of coming back are not great. So Mark Wahlberg spends a good chunk of the film unconscious. He gets knocked out a couple times. He would have in real life like a lot of brain damage, but like the convenient way, because they don't really have anywhere else that they can put him. It's a small plane. It's not meant for more than maybe like 4 people, So there isn't really room for him to go anywhere. So all they can do is kind of like chain him or knock him out. Like they have the chains because because Topher Grace is a prisoner, so he has like handcuffs and chains on. So all she has to do is make a choice that Mark Wahlberg is more dangerous and swap. So she has chains available, or she can knock him out. Like those are like 2 options, because she refuses to, because she's of the law, refuses to just throw him off the plane, or shoot him in the head. So we have to deal with him coming up, and most of the stuff he has to say is in reference to like prison rape to Topher Grace. Like, most of his gags are reminding Topher. He constantly refers to Topher Grace as twink. I don't think Mel Gibson knows what that word means. I think Topher's a little old for that. But anyway, I don't know. I guess it's all relative. I guess if you're 30 years older than Topher, then maybe that's still a thing. But it's, I guess it's refreshing that all of his sexual innuendos are thrown at Topher Grace and not at Michelle Dockery. You know, like he has way more inappropriate sexual remarks to make to Topher Grace than he does to Michelle Dockery. Anyway, so I his character is so all over the place. It's kind of funny to watch because it's not great. It's like one of those, like, it's so bad it's good things. Like, his character's so bafflingly, like, full of choices. Like, how did we get here? It's like, I don't know, being fascinated by your child's drawing on the wall. You're upset that they drew on the wall, but at the same time, you're like, wow, it's actually kind of interesting what you did there. Might be another Picasso. I don't know. You're staring at it for a while, and you're like, I love your choices of color and the palette that you've chosen here, and it shouldn't be on the wall. And I guess it still looks like a child's drawing, but I don't know. There's something here. I'm just gonna stare at it for a little while. It kind of feels like that with Mark Wahlberg, where you're just like, I don't know why I'm watching this. I should not like this, but there's something there's something uniquely enjoyable about watching Mark Wahlberg's awful performance. Every time he has a choice, it just seems like any choice they have, if they had like a multiple choice test, and every test, and this multiple choice test was written in a way where there was a correct answer, and then there were two other answers that could feasibly be a correct answer, and then there was like D was like nowhere near, you know, the what's the capital of America? Is it A, Washington D.C., B, New York City, C, Pittsburgh, D, Oz? And then people are like, ooh, I know, it's Oz. And they do that every time. And you're just like, no. So that's like the whole movie, basically. Every choice Mark Wahlberg's character makes, or they make for him, is just so cringy and so bad. Although his exit in the film is great. His exit from the film is kind of shocking, but also kind of great. So, is Flight Risk going to be the worst film that I see this year? No. Is it a good movie? No, it's not. And am I doing this just because Mel Gibson directed it? No. No, I did a review of the Boneyard, which is a movie I found on Tubi that Mel Gibson did last year. And even in that, I said, it's not that it's bad, it's that it's like staggeringly mediocre. You know, it's the problem is that it's just very average. And Mel Gibson used to make better movies than this. And that's true here as well. Like, is Flight Risk the worst movie I'll see this year? No. But at the same time, is it good? No, it's not. And Mel Gibson is responsible for better movies than this. So the sad thing is that whatever culture we've created around Mel Gibson's career, he's still out there making movies, and he's still making choices. And he got funding for this. And this was the movie he chose to make. And for people who are really excited about the Passion of the Christ sequel, I would say look at Flight Risk, because Passion of the Christ was made at a time when he was still making decent movies. So you got Passion of the Christ. That's why that movie worked on any level. For people who are looking for Resurrection of the Christ, I would say the fact that Flight Risk was going to be the movie he made right before that, not a great sign that he has any sort of idea about what to direct. It's very hard to course correct once you've started to go on a downhill slope. And I have little to no hope that the follow up to that movie is going to be anywhere near where the first movie was. So audio description wise, not my favorite track either. There were times where they weren't. It felt like they weren't describing something. Um, Case in point, that's not really the best thing I can give you. That's not a spoiler. Is up at the beginning. They're sort of breaking into Topher Grace's room, and Michelle's got these two, like, I don't know, Tweedledee Tweedledum random officers with her who don't have any sort of names, or I don't think they had lines. And they kind of are the ones that are arresting Topher while she does all the talking. And he she's like, put him on the bed or something like that, because there isn't really any place to put him. And she's like, oh, not on the bed. He's like, not on the bed. Oh, the crusty sheets. And then I was like, did they put him on the bed? Because the audio description actually never says. And his whole thing is like, stop, don't put me on the bed. So it kind of became an interesting question of, is he on the bed? Did he get put on the bed? Is he sitting on the bed? Is he laying on the bed? Is anything happening? We just kind of dodged that whole thing, that whole interaction. And that kind of happens in a movie that has sort of like little to no action to it. That kind of happens a little bit too much with choices. And because there are not many choices here to make. So if there is a choice and you skip it, there's very little action in this movie. So it's a quick 90-minute movie, thank God. Another thing is, there's this conversation. I know it's meant to be charming, but I was kind of thinking, I was like, is this Mel Gibson's lady? Is this how he gets the ladies? So they're trapped in the air, and she doesn't know how to fly the plane, and she gets herself in a situation where she has to fly the plane. So she calls her superior, who puts in touch with the pilot. So the pilot is coaxing her through, and within seconds, the pilot is asking her out on a date while she's in crisis in the air. And it's meant to be charming, but it's also like not the right time, you know? I mean, she's scared and in the air and wants to land the plane, but like it's played as charming that like her and this guy have this weird rapport, and he's like really waiting for this date. But it's so fast. It's not like it's this relationship that they build like over time. I think within the first, I think he says like maybe like answers like 3 questions, and his like fourth thing that he says to her is like is pertaining to the date. And she says, and she's kind of taken back by it, and she does that thing where she's like, you want to go out for dinner? And he's like, well, if you don't have to twist my arm about it, yeah, I'll go out to dinner with you. And I'm like, what is happening? What is this choice? This is so bizarre. Um, so, don't ask people out who are in the middle of like a life crisis. Like if it's just not appropriate. It's not cute. It's not clever. You don't even have that kind of rapport. It would have made more sense for like her to fall in love with Topher Grace by the end of the movie, because at least they're in that together. That's a pretty typical thing, is when two people are in a life and death situation together and they end up together at the end of the movie, even though they're like, federal agent and criminal. It would have made more sense for them to end up together than for her to fall in love with the guy on the phone who keeps talking about this date that they're going to go on when they land. Man, I don't know about flight risk. I kept an open mind. I went into this with an open mind for it, and yeah, there's not really a whole lot here. There's basically, if you're a big fan of Michelle Dockery, and you've been looking for her to do something interesting, that's like a leading role that feels meaty at all, I guess this is as close as it's going to get for her. Sadly, I wish she could get more, but if we're being honest, Zendaya is getting all the roles, and other people, like, we move on to other people. It's like whoever's hot at the moment, and we're too far removed from Downton Abbey for her career to really pop at this point. So she's just going to kind of coast. So stuff shit like Flight Risk is exactly the kind of stuff she's going to end up with. So I'm gonna give Flight Risk a D plus. I was gonna say D minus, D plus. Um, it's kind of fun and interesting to watch Mark Wahlberg's baffling performance, but it's also kind of fun to watch Michelle Dockery try to work her way through a movie that is really not good on any level, and to try to have some semblance of character. Uh, so yeah, that's Flight Risk. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side.